Hey everybody, welcome back to Horror Trans. My name is Stephanie Bree. I'm a transgender woman who discusses all things horror. Haven't shaved in a couple days. My razor, the battery's dead, and I can't find the charger, so I'm gonna shave as soon as I find the fucking charger. I don't have any blades. So I apologize for being disheveled, but it is what it is. As always, at the top of the show, I like to talk about what I've watched since my last episode. Not as much as the last episode because this one there wasn't as big of a break, but I watched a few movies, some of them horror, some of them not, as is often the case. I did watch Planet Terror for the first time. I've got a review coming. It's recorded. It's ready to upload. Actually, all of this week's videos are ready to upload. I just haven't got around to it yet, but I'm going to do it today. I watched Underworld. Okay, I watched the first half of Underworld and I fell asleep. I was watching it too late at night. Now, to be fair, I've seen Underworld before, so it was no big loss. But it was a fun movie. I'll talk about it. It's coming. Short Circuit, I did a live stream of this the other day, a couple days ago. Obviously, I can't show the film because of, copyright stuff, and I don't have the technology to do so right now. I could probably get away with putting it in a small window and watching it through OBS, but I've had difficulties getting OBS to function correctly on my computer, and I don't know if it's because my laptop doesn't have a functional GPU, because the GPU died and I had to go into the BIOS and disable it just to get Windows to start, and I'm using the built-in Windows display adapter, which is worthless. Or if it was because of my slow-ass internet, because I was on very slow-ass. I was basically on 3G wireless internet previously. I'm now on fiber optic internet. So I'll test it, I'll try it out. If it works, I can get it to work. I'll start streaming video games again on my main channel. I might dabble in streaming movies again on this channel and possibly streaming live watches, while I watch a movie and commentate on it. I might start doing that again. If I can get OBS working. And if I do, I'll probably start streaming some horror video games on this channel, because I think that would be fun. I also watched The Meg. This wasn't a first-time watch for me. I saw it first opening night in the theater. True story, The Meg was the very first movie I ever wrote a professional review for, paid, when I worked at the newspaper. I actually wrote a review for it. When it came out for the newspaper where I worked. Don't look for that review. It's under my dead name, so please don't look for it. But anyways, it's out there. I also watched Deep Blue Sea with a friend for the first time. And I also watched Megalodon Rising. Now, I will be doing a review for Deep Blue Sea. Megalodon Rising, God no. God-awful movie, don't watch it. If you edit it out, how many times they said yes ma'am in that movie? It's a 30-minute movie. That's like 90% of the fucking footage in the movie. Yes ma'am. Yes ma'am. Yes ma'am. They say it like 10,000 times in the movie, goddammit. Was it written by ChatGPT for fucking Christ's sake? I don't know. It felt like it was. Anyways. And then I rewatched the classic sci-fi comedy, The Fifth Element. Great fucking movie. We got some interesting horror news and rumors. The first one definitely goes under rumors, not necessarily news. But yesterday, a report came out that A24 has canceled the upcoming Friday the 13th TV series. But now, Bloody Disgusting and some other outlets, but this is coming from Bloody Disgusting, is saying that's false. A24 has not pulled the plug. So, A24, Peacock, and Brian Fuller, titled Crystal Lake, new revival series. Blah, 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 legal troubles, 15 years since the last Voorhees film. Alright, Jeff Snyder reported in his newsletter, The In Snyder, late last night that A24 has pulled the plug on the Crystal Lake series, which was due to begin filming sometime this year. He wrote, "It's unclear whether this is a permanent decision or a temporary one, as A24 had no comment. Perhaps Peacock will help the trades shed more light on this project, which was announced back in 2022. However, according to Bloody Disgusting sources, A24 has not killed off the Crystal Lake at this time. They say, "We have confirmed the show is still happening, but there is indeed some retooling of the project happening behind the scenes." They say, "We're digging for more info, so stay tuned." It is being described as an expanded prequel to the original Friday the 13th franchise, featuring both Jason Voorhees and his mother. Original final goal, Adrian King has even signed on for a recurring role in the planned A24 television series. That'll be interesting because I don't think she looks 17 years old anymore. She wasn't 17 at the time, but I guess she was probably a college student, so she was probably a 22-year-old. Anyways, I don't know. She ain't going to look the same, so we'll see how that comes together. She might not be playing the same character. I don't know. We'll see. Anyways, allegedly, the series was canceled, but maybe also not canceled. We'll see. Next, we have Twisters. New trailer. Alright, we got a new trailer to watch. Let's get on with it. Alright, we got rodeos. I like it. They're definitely playing up on this. Takes place in the Midwest, and rodeos are a real thing in the Midwest, so yay. Here comes the chaos. Animals are crashing, cars are crashing. This looks intense. There goes some asshole in a pickup truck. Universal, Warner Brothers, Amblin, Jesus Christ.
You've never seen tornadoes like this before. Now we need your help.
No, I don't chase anymore.
Gee, we can save lives.
I'll give you 1 week.
Alright, fellas. We got PhDs from NASA, FEMA, and Kate. She's the smartest person I know.
Hey, dude. This is interesting. Who are they?
And they're bringing back the Storm Chasers. It looks like they've got the same or similar equipment than what was used in the first Twister movie. I don't understand what they're supposed to be doing. How are they saving lives? I don't know what they're doing. Well, we'll see how the movie plays out. This is gonna be a great film to watch for me because I grew up in Kansas and I want to see more films that take place in Kansas that aren't Critters.
Yes, ma'am.
They're shooting bombs at the tornado. Are they? Did the assholes that wrote Sharknado have a say in this? Don't rip off Sharknado. God damn it. That's a no-no. That's a don't do.
But in the field, in the moment.
I don't know who any of these people are. Which, to be fair, I didn't know at the time, I was a kid, who any of the people in the original Twister were, so that's fine. That works for me. Oh god, are we going to have another B-movie romance? I don't need that.
We got twins! Twins!
They're combining. Go faster.
Let's ride.
By the way, tornadoes can get up to 125 to 200 miles an hour. Your car cannot outrun a tornado. I don't care what car you own. Unless it's a, $17 million Lamborghini, it ain't outrunning a tornado.
You ride 'em.
Definitely a fucking Ford pickup truck ain't outrunning a tornado. I don't give a fuck what the filmmakers say.
You ever see anything like this?
Not like this.
Hold on.
Alright, they just blew up a power plant. That looks pretty fucking awesome. I'm hyped for this movie. This is the one movie I might see in the theaters this year. Because I usually only see 1 or 2 movies in the theater a year these days. Because I'm old and I'm, busy and broke as fuck. But I will set aside the $25 to go see Twisters in the theater. I'm dying to see Beetlejuice, or whatever it ends up officially being called. But I don't need to see that in theaters. Alright, moving on. What else we got? By the way, those past two stories were bloody disgusting, as is this one. This one is horror movie, quote, pause, will feature polar bear creature animatronics. Alright. Film, horror movie, holy shit, now streaming on Screambox. Director Lucas Rinker is back with the upcoming creature feature, Pause. Variety reports this week that, quote, the Playmaker has signed with Neopol Film to handle international sales on the project, but that's not the most noteworthy aspect of their report. The website teases that the upcoming Pause will feature, quote, polar bear creature animatronics from the renowned studio behind Star Wars and Jurassic World. The film tells the story of a climate researcher stranded in the Arctic who must forge an unlikely alliance with a polar bear in order to survive. Oh, this looks fun. There's a poster. It looks cool. Is there a trailer? No trailer yet. Alright. This is definitely going to be on my to-watch list at some point in time. This looks fucking awesome. I can't wait to see it. Bloody Disgusting also reporting Sinister Sundays. Marcus Theaters are hosting retro horror movie screenings all summer long. Alright, Marcus Theaters isn't waiting until Halloween to celebrate spooky season, as their Sinister Sundays lineup will bring weekly horror movie screenings to the hot summer months. You can pick 4 movies from the series for $15 of the full series for just $45. The lineup is May 26 and 28. They will be showing I Know What You Did Last Summer. That's a classic. The Ring on June 2 and 4. I lied. I'm seeing The Ring in theaters. I saw The Ring in theaters opening weekend. It wasn't opening night, but it was like that following Sunday, I think, or Monday probably. I saw it in theaters. I saw it 3 times in theaters. I'm going to be honest with you. I will watch The Ring in theaters June 2nd and June 4th. I'm probably actually going to go ahead and reserve my tickets now. Next up, Dawn of the Dead 20th anniversary, June 9th and 11th. That sounds like the remake Dawn of the Dead. So, yeah, that's cool. Scream, June 16 and 18. That would be cool to watch in theaters if somebody wanted to, like, buy my ticket, because I ain't going to pay for that, because I've seen Scream too many times. The Blair Witch Project, fuck off. We're not even talking about that movie. It, coming June 23rd and 25th if you're interested. It, June 30th and July 2. Is this the original It? I have to open up the window to see which version of It this is. Oh, it's the new one. Never mind. The Tim Curry It, I would probably go see in the theater. The Conjuring, July 7th and 9th. Saw, 20th anniversary, July 14 and 16. Paranormal Activity, July 21 and 23. Orphan, 15th anniversary, July 28 and 30. American Psycho, August 4 and 6. I might see that one in theaters, too. That's a maybe. Poltergeist, August 11 and 13. That, no. Because that movie scares the shit out of me. I don't want to see it in a theater. No. A Nightmare on Elm Street, August 18 and 20. 100% seeing that in theaters. Oh my god. The Exorcist, extended director's. I'm lying because there's no Marcus Theater close by. So, no, I won't get to see any of these in the theater. But if I could, I would. God damn it, I might have to plan a road trip to go see A Nightmare on Elm Street in theaters. It's my favorite movie of all time. I've got to find I got to look at this because I want to see where's the nearest showing to me. Coming soon movies. I have to see where. So let's click on book a group. Private events and screening. Request theater rental information. No, I don't want that. I have to find, where are these? Contact, gift cards, groups, specials, locations. Illinois, Iowa, Minnesota, Nebraska, blah, 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 blah. I don't see any close enough to me, so never mind. I'm not going to take a road trip to go. I closed the window, I apologize. Anyways, that article's on Bloody Disgusting, you can go find it. Oh, never mind. I found the window. Here it is. And finally, The Shining, September 1 and 3. So, there you go. No theaters close by to me, so I'm disappointed. I would 100% see Nightmare on Elm Street in theaters. The only Nightmare on Elm Streets I've ever seen in theaters, unfortunately, is Freddy vs. Jason, which was fun, and the remake, which I liked, but was not as fun. Alright, there you go. Next up, also from Bloody Disgusting, Jack O'Connell joins the cast of 28 Years Later. I don't know who he is, so let's find out. Danny Boyle and Alex Garland are re-teaming for the long-awaited, their words, not mine, 28 Years Later horror sequel trilogy. Jack O'Connell from Amy Winehouse Back to Black, okay, has been joined the previously announced Jodie Comer, Aaron Taylor Johnson, and Ralph. I don't know who any of these people are. Cillian Murphy is on board as executive producer. Alright, well, I'll just say this. I won't be seeing this movie in theaters. I may or may not watch it to do a review. But let's be real. I didn't like the first one. I hated the second one. There's a high probability this movie don't work for me. But we'll see. I'll give it a fair chance. We'll see. You never know. Alright, here we go. From Joe Blow. This says, Laurie Metcalf says her Scream 2 reveal was the best. And the question is, what do you think? She's on drugs, is what I think. No way. I'm not even reading this article. Fuck Laurie Metcalf. Don't fuck her literally. She's a great, don't get me wrong, she's a great actress. I love her in, Roseanne. Didn't care for her being in Scream 2, but whatever. Alright, also from Choblo, 47 Meters Down, The Wreck will be launching its sales at the Cannes market. It will soon become a trilogy with the creators coming back with the director of My Bloody Valentine. This looks like a good fun shark movie. I don't see any trailers in the article, so nothing to really talk about yet. Also from Joe Blow, Phantasm's The Tall Man is getting a Funko Pop figure. I think that's pretty fucking awesome. That's a figure I'll actually track down. Absolutely. I may have to pay aftermarket prices for it, but I have my methods. Also from Joe Blow, John Carpenter says directing remotely is, quote, fabulous. Now, I have to read a little bit of this. Speaking on the Last Donut of the Night podcast, John Carpenter said that directing Phone Stalker was a breeze and one of the most convenient jobs he could imagine, calling the experience fabulous. I didn't have to get up and leave the house. I could get coffee anytime I wanted. I had a chair to sit in. It went great. As far as having that necessary interaction with his cast and crew, he noted, it was easy because the computer was right next to me. I think John Carpenter is senile and probably at this point too fucking lazy to be making films. Too old. I'm not a John Carpenter hater. I love some of his movies. Several of his movies, in fact. At least 5 of them I actually love. But I'm not enamored by John Carpenter. And y'all know how I feel about Halloween 1978. That movie can eat shit. It can eat dog shit for all I care. Alright, moving on. JoeBlow.com also says, Neve Campbell says the studio complied with her salary increase for Scream 7. Now, the only reason I would watch Scream 7 at this point is to throw a couple bucks to Neve Campbell. However, I'm not going to be seeing it in theaters. I haven't seen a single Scream in theaters. So, there's no guarantee she's going to get any money from me anyways, because I'll most likely be watching it on a streaming service. And I don't know if she'll get like a tenth of a penny or not. So good for her, she's getting paid, but she ain't getting my money. Moving on. Lastly, Dread Central. I don't usually do these types of reads on the news segment, but I wanted to today. It says, Stephen King loves these 10 Netflix thrillers. So this is a list of thrillers that Stephen King has praised. So we have Dark from 2017, The Diplomat from 2023, Cleo from 2022, The Haunting of Hill House 2018, Midnight Mass 2021, Mindhunter 2017 to 2019. Is that a series? Mr. Harrigan's Phone 2022, The Stranger 2020, Stranger Things Season 4. Hell yeah. Who doesn't love Stranger Things Season 4? The Tourist 22 to 24. And that's the list. You know what? I can't comment on any of these but Stranger Things because I haven't seen any of them but Stranger Things. But Stranger Things is fucking hell yeah. Alright. That's all I got for the news and rumors section. I only have 2 topics today, which is why I wanted more news and rumors. Because I don't know how far we're going to get with either of these topics. Because the first topic is reviving the 80s horror aesthetic. Now, I've already kind of sort of rambled a little bit on this topic during my Lisa Frankenstein rent or buy review. Which was like way too much of the review, I admit. But I had to get it off my chest. But I got more to say. So obviously, the 80s are never going to fucking die. This is just so apparent that until the, universe ends and we all no longer exist, the 80s are fucking here to stay. So, let's just get on with it. What do I like about the 80s aesthetic in horror movies? So, I know I bitched about Lisa Frankenstein, but here's what I want. If you're gonna copycat the 80s, there's 2 approaches I want you to take. Approach number 1. If you're gonna set it in a very specific year, do your goddamn homework and make it look like that year. If you tell me the movie takes place in 1984, but it looks like it takes place in 1988, you're gonna get a middle finger. You're gonna. Do your goddamn homework. What I mean by... And don't just watch other horror movies that were made in 1984. That's step 1. Yes, if your movie's set in 1984, study the horror movies set in 1984. But also, study the newscasts from 1984. Study the sitcoms and TV dramas from 1984. Study, whatever was happening in kids' television. Whichever season of Punky Brewster was in 1984. Study that. But also, dig up some yearbooks from that year. Dig up some old local newspapers, at least from the major cities, New York Times, USA Today, etc. But also, if your movie's set in a specific city in 1984, try to track down at least 3 or 4 newspapers from that city from 1984. It ain't hard. They all have archives. It ain't that hard. And also, did I say yearbooks? Look at yearbooks from 1984. Not just the yearbook photos, the selfies at the end. No, look at, the actual pictures of what kids looked like and how they dressed in 1984. I'm just using this as an example. If you're gonna set your movie in 84, make it look like 84. It had better not look like 1988, goddammit. Do your fucking homework. Also, watch MTV music videos from 1984. Come on, do your homework. The alternative approach, which is my preferred approach, because at least I don't have to bitch and gripe about it as much. Don't set it in a specific year. Do the Goldberg approach where it's an amalgamation. It's 1980 something. It could literally be any year in the decade, but I don't care. If you take that approach, I will dismiss the anachronisms and the things that are wrong. I won't give a shit if your character is wearing a slap bracelet 3 years before slap bracelets were invented. I won't give a fuck because you didn't date the film. I'll be okay with it. I'm fine with that. That's the approach, the proper, correct approach to take if you're gonna set your movie in a time period. Either do your goddamn homework or just throw your hands up and say, yeah, it's 1980 whatever. don't specify a year. Because as soon as you specify a year, you're gonna get people like me who are gonna be like, hey, wait a minute, that ain't right. It's gonna happen. Whether you like it or not, it's gonna happen. Is it gonna affect sales? Maybe not. Depends on how egregious it is. But most likely, probably not. But people are gonna bitch. And if you want to avoid the bitching, do your goddamn homework. Be authentic. If you're gonna represent a specific time period, be authentic. Because that's all we want. That's all we ask. I love Stranger Things. I've already mentioned that. And I didn't hate Lisa Frankenstein. Actually, I think I rated it a buy. I'm pretty sure. Spoilers if you haven't seen that video yet. I'm pretty sure. Because I know I've already seen it twice. And I'll probably see it again. Because it's a good movie. I just had some major complaints with it being set in 1989. But looking like 1987. I'm sorry. I was alive in the 80s. You know, fashions changed very quickly. They didn't linger back then. They didn't. So anyways, moving on. What about, like, the dialect, the writing, the dialogue? How did people talk in 1980, whatever? This one, I'll give you a pass on. You know, if your movie's, again, set in 1984, and your character mutters cowabunga, which was not popular until like 1988, I'm gonna roll my eyes, but I'll probably forgive it because, hey, maybe this guy was reading comic books, or gal, or whoever. The reverend, I don't know, maybe they were a surfer dude before surfer culture took over. I don't know. I'll allow it. I'll be skeptical, but I'll allow it. But like, if you're gonna make movies set in the 80s, you need to study. Do your homework. These are the movies you have to watch. Have to. The John Hughes films. Study the John Hughes films. The John Carpenter films. I know I've said John. Study the John Carpenter films. Study the slashers. Pick 3 random Friday the 13th. Watch them. Study them. Pick 3 random Friday the 13th. Nightmare on Elm Streets. Pick 3 random Halloweens, and pick 3 random non-franchise horror movies. Like, just anything, you know, fucking Maximum Overdrive, or, you know, fucking, I don't know, My Bloody Valentine, whatever. Just pick 3 random movies and study them, just to get an idea of how people talked in the 80s, you know? And also, go back to watch some of the newscasts, watch some MTV, you know, some of the VJ dialogue. You know, just get an idea of how people talked. You know, just do your homework. Do your homework. Do your research. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm asking. Put in a little effort. Don't just watch I Loved the 80s on VH1 and go, okay, I'm ready to go. Don't do that. That's a don't fucking... I Love the 80s is fine. I enjoy it. I watch it. Don't get me wrong. I do. But it's like, come on. You know, it's cherry picking, like, the highlights of the 80s. It's dismissing a lot of stuff that maybe wasn't, like, top 10, but, like, you know, top 30? You know what I mean? So, anyways. Alright. Are there any movies currently out, or having previously been released, that, in my opinion, really capture the 80s aesthetic? Like, modern movies supposedly set in the 80s that you can convince me this would have been made in the 80s and I would have believed you. Movies? No. Not a one. I can't think of a single movie that can trick me into believing it was actually made in the 80s. Not a single one. Cartoons? You could have told me, aside from the pop culture references, obviously, that Adventure Time was made in 1986, and I could have fell for it. I could have fell for it. TV shows, Stranger Things, yes, they do it well. You could have told me Stranger Things could have been made in 1988. It looks like it belongs in 1988. It really does. It does look. Stranger Things does it right. As far as I'm concerned, and I hate to, jump on the bandwagon, but as far as I'm concerned, Stranger Things is the only one that does it right. The Duffer Brothers know what the fuck they're doing. Like, they're doing it right. Everybody else is either copycatting Stranger Things, but they're referencing I Love the 80s, or they don't know what the fuck they're doing, or they just don't give a shit. I don't know which it is. Moving on. Alright, this one's going to be a hot topic. This one, I'm going to push some buttons and piss people off. But I like to do that. Because it's fun. But also because I'm not mainstream. I'm not the, quote, typical person. The typical horror fan. I'm my own me. So, alright, go, get away from me. Were the 70s a good decade for horror? Now, if you asked, were the 70s a good decade for sci-fi, it's a goddamn hell no. It didn't get good until Star Wars. But that's like so late in the decade, that the decade as a whole, no, not good for science fiction. Science fiction was a ghost town in the 70s. But horror? Question mark. Was it a good decade for horror? Well, you had some classics that were game changers. I gotta grab the cat because he wants a hug. Give me the hug. Give me a hug. He's just a little fussy pants. So let me give him a hug. It's okay. He's purring. He's a purring. He's like, pay attention to me, please. Get off the computer. I ain't getting off the computer. That's all you get right now. You have food. You have water. You have your toys. Go play. So you had some major game-changing classics in the 70s. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Exorcist, Last House on the Left, The Omen. This is well documented, well discussed. We've all talked about these. Day of the Dead. Was it Dawn of the Dead? Dawn of the Dead. Excuse me. Yeah, this is well damn documented. But peek underneath the surface, those are all at the top. What about the rest of the decade? What about the rest of the decade? Yeah, you had your B-movie schlock like Microwave Massacre. Fun movie, go watch it. And you had like, I think you still had some Hammer films limping along. And you had some like made-for-TV-esque stuff. And you had the beginnings of what would become the Giallo, with Bay of Blood and its 17 names. Beyond that, the 70s are not a very interesting decade as far as horror goes. I look at 70s horror movies, and I can't bring myself to click play. I read the description, I read the IMDb, I read the Rotten Tomatoes, I read the Letterboxd. I read a little bit of the Wikipedia, with not too much of it, but just a little bit. I look at the poster, I watch the trailer, and I'm like, nah, I'm good. There's just not a lot of good horror in the 70s. I'm one of the opinion that horror became a thing in the 80s. Yeah, alright, you had Halloween 1978. I forgot to mention it. I apologize. Y'all know I don't like that movie. I do hate it. I hate it. I fucking hate it. So, I'll watch it. I appreciate it for what it did, because I'm a slasher fan. But I still fucking hate it. But it is what it is. We've been down this road. We beat that horse to death. There's nothing. There's not even ashes. That horse is gone. There's nothing left to beat on that horse. So I apologize. So let's talk about what was good. Well, The Last House on the Left was good. This helped kick off a sort of short-lived trend of rape revenge films. Not a fan of the rest of them. I'm not even going to talk about that other one. I've already done a review on it, I think. We're not talking about it. But The Last House on the Left, fuck yeah. I'm not going to be like, give me more of this. No. This is enough. This is intense enough. I've seen it. You've traumatized me. I'm going to have nightmares. Thank you very much. You did your job. Good job. Then you have the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Some obnoxious hipster weirdos try to argue this is a slasher movie. Get a fucking clue. This isn't even in the slasher family. This isn't even a proto-slasher. There is nothing slasher about this movie. It has a final girl. Yeah, that's a slasher trope. It's also a horror in general trope. So fuck off. This ain't a slasher movie. This ain't a proto-slasher movie. Is it one of the most important films in the history of horror? You betcha. I would argue the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is the second most important horror movie released in the decade. Obviously, the most important horror movie released in the 70s was The Exorcist. There's no really getting around it. It launched an entire cultural movement of satanic panic. The next decade and a half was dominated by crazy extremist Christo-fascists who were running around pointing fingers at, that's the devil! God damn it, everything was satanic in the 80s. And that started with The Exorcist. Damn good movie, by the way. I'm gonna ruffle some feathers, like I said. The Omen. Not nearly as important as Chainsaw or Exorcist. Hell, not as important as Halloween. Alright? Or Day of the Dead. Or Last House on... In fact, I would argue it's not important at all. The Omen could have never happened and nothing would have ever changed in the history of cinema. Nothing. It had no impact on anything. The Omen was just a movie that people like. Is it a good movie? Yeah. But is it a historically significant, culturally important, or impactful movie? No, not really. Not even at all. The things people remember, air quotes, from The Omen are actually in The Exorcist or other movies. Most people don't even remember The Omen correctly. It's, I'll say it, largely pretty forgettable. It has like 2 or 3 memorable sequences. The rest of the movie, you can't remember it. I can't remember it. I remember the memorable sequences, but like the chain of events, I don't fucking remember it. The who's who, I don't fucking remember. Nobody does. And if you say you do, I'm gonna assume you're lying. Or you're one of those people who's seen it too many times. If that's the case, if it's your thing and you watched it a whole bunch, good for you. Enjoy it, love it. You don't have to agree with me. I don't have to love it. I like it. It's enjoyable. I own it on DVD. It's just meh. In the grand scheme of things, it wasn't as important as the other horror movies of the decade. It just wasn't. You had some, what I called made-for-TV style movies in the 80s, like When a Stranger Calls, stuff like that are perfectly passable horror movies, or thrillers, if you will. But, like, in the 70s, you had 2 camps when it came to horror. You had the thrillers, and you had the schlock. It was very rare you got anything outside of those 2. Very rare. I've already mentioned the ones that were outside of that. Alright, we're not going to get into my critical critiques of Halloween 1978. We're just going to talk about the historical significance and the impact it had on horror. In terms of really helping define and kick off the slasher craze of the 80s, yes, Halloween is significantly important for that aspect. And as much shit as I talk about it, I do enjoy watching the movie. Okay? I have major issues with it. My problem with the movie, my major gripe with the movie, is it's not as good as people say it is, number 1. And number 2, too many people who do not watch horror at all say it's the greatest horror movie ever made, which it ain't. And that tells me you've never seen any other horror movie ever, if you think this is the greatest horror movie ever made. And also, it's not even the best slasher movie. It's barely a slasher. It's at best a proto-slasher plus. Plus 5, maybe. Proto slasher plus 5. It's not a fully developed slasher yet. The first Halloween movie that was a fully developed slasher was Halloween 2, which consequently was aping Friday the 13th, which was aping Halloween. So there you go. The back and forth was real. Dawn of the Dead. Let's talk about it. Yes, Night of the Living Dead gave us the zombie apocalypse horror movie. Dawn of the Dead gave us the template for how to do it going forward. You know what I mean? Like, Night of the Living Dead was the trailer for Dawn of the Dead. That's all it was. It's a good movie. It's a historically significant movie, impactful, etc. Great movie, don't get me wrong. But it's basically the trailer for Dawn of the Dead. Dawn of the Dead is the feature presentation. Dawn of the Dead is the movie you paid to go see. This is the movie that changed cinema, especially zombie cinema and horror. That's undeniable. Now, Giallo over in Italy was doing its thing, yes, absolutely. But the Giallos that were taking Italy by storm and changing horror and whatnot didn't really have an impact in America. Some of them didn't even land in America until years later, when they were rediscovered and reevaluated. I wasn't alive in the 70s, but I can read articles from the time and look at news clippings and reviews and box office, etc. The Giallo films didn't really hit in America until the 80s. We're not going to talk about Suspiria because I literally threw up when I was watching that movie and I couldn't finish it, and I'll never talk about it again, and I'm not revisiting it. I'm sorry, I'm not sorry. That's everything I can think of that was important in the 70s in the realm of horror. Now, if we're just talking about cinema in general, yeah, the 70s are a great decade. And I can give you movies all day long. Go watch this, go watch this, go watch this. A few of them are going to be horror. Most of them won't. And it's going to obviously have Jaws and Star Wars and Alien in that list. Because I think Alien was 79. So yeah, you know. Sci-fi got good at the tail end of the 70s. Horror was, you know, really bursting at the seams. It was ready. It was ripe and ready to go. And it hatched in 79 and then took off in 1980. And when I say hatched, I'm talking about Alien, obviously. I guess if Alien was 1979, I do have to talk about it because that's also a 70s horror movie. Alien, although it was coming after the success of Star Wars, which, you know, opened the door for Alien, absolutely. I think Alien had more of an impact on horror than Star Wars had on sci-fi. I really do. Because it really cemented the final girl trope. Like, by the time Alien came along, it was like, no, final girl is, you know, mandatory in horror movies, especially slashers. The final girl trope was solidified by the time Alien came along. It was no longer avoidable. It was no longer optional. You know, prior to Alien, some movies had a final girl and they worked. Some movies didn't and they worked. But after Alien, oh god no, you could not make a horror movie, especially a slasher, which is what Alien is, without a final girl. You couldn't do it. You couldn't do it. You can't do it today. And I say final girl. It could be a boy. It could be a non-binary. It could be gender fluid. It could be whatever. It doesn't have to be a female. And it doesn't have to be a cisgender female. It can be a trans woman. I don't give a shit. But it solidified the trope, basically. So yes, Alien absolutely impacted horror. It also brought back the creature feature in a big way. We got a lot of dope-ass creature features in the 80s. And it also solidified sci-fi horror as a legitimate genre. Up to that point, sci-fi movies and horror movies, in some decades, were interchangeable, indistinguishable. The Fly was a sci-fi movie. It was also a horror movie. You know, The Day the Earth Stood Still was a sci-fi movie. It was almost a horror movie, etc., etc. You know, so sci-fi and horror were basically the same thing in the 50s and 60s, more or less, outside of what Hitchcock was doing. Hitchcock was writing the script, the template, the how-to guide to make horror movies. Everybody else read the guide and went and like, okay, this is how you make horror movies? Fine, let's do it. And then they just did it. As a whole, you're going to hate me for this. As a whole, I'm going to argue the 70s is a boring-ass decade for horror. You have, like, at most 10 worthwhile horror movies in the decade. At most. I just talked about, like, 7 or 8 of them. So, no, I'm not a tremendous fan of 70s horror. There's some hits here and there, sprinkled out, but the rest of the decade, not so much. And that's my show. Stay cool. Thanks for watching.